Truth Espresso, episode 337.
In a world gone bonkers,
it is not, generally speaking, unruly, but fires have been started, and
where the culture is a dumpster fire,
we're coming for your children,
and churches have lost their way.
I am really uncomfortable with the story of the crucifixion.
It's time to wake up with Truth Espresso.
Truth Espresso.
Your weekly shot of truth. And now your host, Daniel Minnick.
Well, hello there, friends, family, foes, and lurkers alike. This is your host, Daniel Minnick, for another exciting episode of Truth Espresso. And we're in for a real treat here because I have with me Joe Stout, who is the president of Mount Capra, a health food and supplement company that bases its products on goat milk. With their 500 goat farm, and Joe is also the president of Mount Athos Performance, a workout and fitness supplement and protein company that bases its products on, you guessed it, goat milk. And all Mount Capra and Mount Athos products come from Joe's family-owned goat dairy farm and nearby processing plant, ensuring only the highest quality products that are natural and pure. And who is Joe Stout? Well, he holds a Master's of Science in Clinical Human Nutrition from the University of Bridgeport and a Bachelor's of Science in Human Nutrition and Food Science from Washington State University. And he has done graduate studies of sustainable food systems at Green Mountain College and is certified in permaculture design. And in this episode, we're going to find out how goat milk just may be the GOAT for your health and fitness. So I extend a warm welcome, a warm Truth Espresso welcome. Joe Stout, thank you for being here on Truth Espresso.
Thank you, Daniel, for having me. I'm excited to be here.
So, Joe, could you tell me a little bit about yourself? Let our listeners get acquainted with you and give me a little bit of a Christian testimony.
I would love to. So I live up here in Washington State in the Pacific Northwest. Our farm, as you said in the intro there, has around 500 goats. We're in the middle of kidding season right now where all the new baby goats are born. So we actually have a lot more than 500 at this very moment. But I live here on the farm. My parents, my mom and dad, they live up just the hill from my wife and I. And we actually have 10 kids. Our oldest is 16. Our youngest is just turned 1. And, we are a Christian family farm, basically. I have one of those testimonies that I think a lot of your listeners probably, if they have children, they would love to have their own kids have this testimony, which is, I grew up always loving Jesus. I don't remember a day that I don't love Jesus. I had faithful parents who raised me in the nurture and admonition of the Lord. And I do remember being baptized. I remember certain high points along the way of my Christian faith. But I have grown up in the church and loving Jesus. And I'm 41 years old now. And, to God be the glory, but I don't remember a day that I never loved Jesus. So that's my testimony. As we like to tell our kids, we hope you all have boring testimonies that just speak to God's faithfulness.
Yeah, amen. Sometimes we want to have those very tear-jerking and very drastic testimonies like you came out of a biker gang and stuff, and those are all good and powerful, but a testimony of being reared up in the faith is where things should be as the church progresses. And you said you have 10 kids. Like, wow, that's impressive. I thought my wife and I, with our 4 kids, I thought that was a lot, but you got more than double that. And, and I'm sure many of them are probably going to carry on some of your legacy here. So you said that Mount Capra and Mount Athos, your companies, they produce healthy products based on goat milk. Like, why should Christians really care about their health? I mean, even the Apostle Paul said that bodily exercise profiteth little. And so why should Christians really care much about their health, and does it affect much about their ability to perform the Lord's work?
That's a great question, and that's one of my favorite verses. The bodily exercise profiteth little. And part of the reason why Christians should care about their health is because God created them. God gave them life, and there is optimum ways of living your life that are more in line with the way He created you to be. So, for example, if you want to chug seed oils all day, then you are going to not have a healthy life experience. And that really is, in a sense, a way of being ungrateful for the life God has given you. Now, of course, there is, in all things, there is a golden mean where you can certainly go into either ditch of just complete ignoring your health and basically casting aside the gift God has given you. And then a lot of our current culture does actually the opposite. They worship the body, they worship the gym. All they care about is the gains they see in the mirror. But Christians should love to be as healthy as they can be, and bodily exercise does profit some. It doesn't profit in the ultimate sense. Our bodies will get old, they'll break down, they'll die. Death is coming for everybody. And so if your pursuit of bodily exercise is meant to be your amulet against death, then that, of course, would be an idolatrous way of viewing health. But we should care about our health because when Paul said that bodily exercise profiteth little, he was operating in a world where physical labor was just the reality of life. Everybody had to physically work hard. From basically the time you were born till the time you died, everything in between was toil. You had to physically work hard at everything. There was not a lot of machinery. The Industrial Revolution hadn't happened yet. And so when he's talking about bodily exercise, he's talking more about those who are of a standing, a social standing, who could actually set aside the labors of life to just focus on, the Olympic Games or the athletic games and competing for this glory of the wreath that they could, the wreath of crown of glory that they could put on their head. And so he uses that phrase and that idea of bodily exercise throughout his letters. We're striving just like a runner strives for he strives for a crown of leaves. We strive for a crown of glory one day with Christ. And so it does profit us some, but ancient bodily exercise, that was more for athletes who had the luxury to pursue it. And they were pursuing glory, which is the profit that comes from that exercise. And it's not a bad thing, but it's also a really bad thing to have as your final destination. If bodily health is your final destination, it will eventually fail you. So the reason why we should care about our health is because it's a gift. Taking care of one's body shows thankfulness for that gift, and because we are not just spirit. We are spirit and body. We are soul and body. And when your body is unhealthy and broken, your soul will in some ways be unhealthy and broken as well, because we are not just disembodied souls, but we also have a soul. And so that's where the golden mean comes in, where you want to care about it, you want to be thankful for it, but you also don't want to serve bodily exercise. You want bodily exercise to serve you.
Awesome. Yeah, all things in moderation. Yeah, you mentioned there's the two extremes, and the Apostle Paul, I know he said that, or maybe it wasn't the Apostle Paul, but do all things to the glory of God. And if doing the Lord's work requires that you maintain your body and not destroy it, as Paul referred to our body as a temple, that we don't want to destroy our bodies, and we also want to focus just enough on them to honor God and to allow us to do his work, help people, and live long on the earth. And yes, that's the real purpose. But then, as you mentioned, it's like fitness can also become an idolatry for some people, and idolatry would be putting anything that God created over God himself. And so it's like, if God created our bodies for a purpose, but if we put our bodies over God, then that becomes a problem. So, Joe, your companies are based on goat milk products. So what makes goat milk something that we should consider? Because we have an awful lot of dairy products, especially in the United States, and that's cow's milk. And so, but what makes goat milk something that we should consider possibly for our health?
Well, I'm glad you asked that. That's definitely something that I spend a lot of time thinking about. Uh, now, first of all, there is kind of like a goat milk versus cow milk conversation you can have, and there are many things about goat milk that are superior to cow milk. But what you're really talking about is two very good nutritional components of your life. So dairy is a very what you would call nutrient dense food. It's got lots of nutrition in it. The problem comes, and for most people, they cut dairy out of their life because it affects them so poorly. And so they cut out a very a nutritionally dense tool from their toolbox because of all of the allergies and digestive issues that many people struggle with when it comes to cow dairy. And so we exist to basically bring the goodness of dairy, but in a form that is far easier to acclimate to your body, so to speak. So first and foremost, goat milk is just easier to digest. Almost hands down across the board, people will be able to recognize right away that a lot of the gastric distress that you might experience from goat milk or from cow milk products, you don't experience those with goat milk products. And a lot of that has to do with the fact that at an actual DNA level, goat milk is more similar to human milk. And so it just matches up with the human condition better than cow milk does. But for a lot of people, they also are actually allergic to casein. Now, goat milk does have casein in it, but it doesn't have the bovine source of casein that a lot of people are allergic to. It's called alpha S1 casein. You might have even seen like A2 milk in the grocery store. That's cow milk, but it's cow milk from cows that have been genetically bred to not create that alpha S1 casein molecule. What we found though is that even people who take that will oftentimes have allergic responses because there's more to cow milk allergy than just that alpha S1 casein protein. And so when they experience goat milk for the first time, oftentimes they're amazed because they're seeing all of the nutritional goodness of dairy without all of the nutritional, basically things you have to live with if you want to do, say, a whey protein that's based in cow milk. So it's easier to digest. It's less allergenic. Those are the two main things. But it also has some natural benefits that come with it. One of the things is that goat milk is naturally homogenized. So in the mass industrial food processes that we have, oftentimes it's almost impossible unless you go to a farm and buy raw milk from the farm, raw cow milk. It's very hard to find any dairy products that aren't homogenized. And homogenized is this very destructive process where they squeeze under high pressure cow milk through a tiny little orifice, and it breaks up all of the fat molecules in the cow milk, and it essentially causes the milk to be homogenized, so it's all in one homogeneous state, as opposed to separating out into the cream on top and the skim milk on the bottom. But unfortunately, that's very destructive to the cow milk. It releases free radicals, and it can be less advantageous for your health to have homogenized milk. Goat milk is naturally homogenized. You don't have to do that because it won't really separate out even if you get it straight from the goat. So those are some of the other nutritional benefits that come from using something like goat milk. But big takeaway: less allergenic and way easier to digest. A lot of our customers, we call them kind of end of rope customers. They're at the end of their rope. They don't exactly know how to get the nutritional density that they need. They find our products, and we fit hand in glove with those kinds of folks.
That's cool to know that, and because a lot of people, obviously they might see goat milk in the supermarket, but they think it's just kind of a specialty thing. It's for special needs people and stuff like that. But we, with the industrialized, processed cow milk that's not as good as goat milk, we might be, for some people anyway, harming their health and they don't even realize it. And like, do you have anything to say about, is it cow milk has like the BCM7 that goat milk doesn't have?
Yeah. So in a lot of those things, so BCM7, I'm actually that might be something that is uh, it's one of those peptides, the BCM7. I actually am drawing a blank on what it even stands for, but it'd be that exact kind of thing. So like the alpha S1 casein protein that goat milk doesn't have, the BCM7, these are things that are found in cow milk that are not found in goat milk. So like for example, take kids for example. Whenever we talk to people about goat milk, or maybe it's for the first time, they generally have a story like, oh yeah, I used to drink goat milk when I was a kid because I couldn't handle cow milk, or I knew somebody who was raised on goat milk and because my mom couldn't nurse or whatever. Those are the kinds of stories that you hear all the time because cow milk is the number one food allergy for kids under 3. And that's absolutely like we're not anti cow milk in our house. We use cow milk products all the time. But we definitely find with our kids until they hit 3, oftentimes they just can't handle cow milk. It just really it bothers them, and it's because of things like the alpha S1 casein, or even the or even what you brought up, which I'm just less familiar with, the BCM7. Those kinds of things don't show up as much in in goat milk. And so that's not to say that everyone is always not allergic to goat milk. We certainly hear from people who they don't, or their little ones don't respond well to goat milk either. It's not for everyone in all circumstances, but the broadness of who it applies to is far better than what we found with cow milk.
Awesome. And so, going off of that and the potential and actual benefits of goat milk for a lot of people who probably haven't considered it, could you tell me a little bit about your company, Mount Capra, and how that came to be? I mean, it says on the Mount Capra website, since 1928, and Joe, I think you look pretty good for someone over 100 years old, so I'm guessing you weren't the founder. So,
Well, I'm glad you noticed that, and thank you for your kind words there. It's a testament to the power of goat milk that I can be this old and look this good, right? No, you're right. I was not the founder, nor was my father the founder. It was actually back in 1928. There was a father-son team that started Mount Capra. At the time, they were actually calling it Briar Hills Dairy, and they made cheese, which is we used to make cheese ourselves, but they also made a nutritional supplement all the way back in the 20s, about a quarter of a century before the health food world even existed. But when you make cheese, you have this leftover whey, and for a long time, people would either throw it away or they'd feed it to pigs. But it's nutritionally powerful. The whey that is left over after you make cheese is very nutritionally powerful. And the founders of Mount Capra, Peter and Melvin Eggers were their names. They found that they could concentrate that whey down into a mineral concentrate. It came from the whey. There was some protein in it, but it was really more minerals and electrolytes. And they would find that they could then have the cheese and also have this mineral extract, which they called Wex, whey extract, put kind of a amalgamation of those two words. And so for many, many years, they sold cheese and they sold this product that they called Wex. As they started to age out, and Melvin was actually long since past running the farm. Peter was running the farm. Back in the 80s, 1985 it was, in fact, they basically transferred the company to my dad, who was this young farmer who wanted to make cheese, and he wanted to learn the craft. He took over in 1985 and has been running it till about 2012, when I joined in a more oversight way. I became president in 2012, and he and I have been running the company and the farm together since 2012. But he'd been running it since the mid 80s, and prior to that, we are almost to that 100-year mark. And so Mount Capra is just this company that exists to connect people with the goodness of goat milk. And so we have a variety of products. I believe we'll talk about later in the show. But really, if you can get milk is in a lot of ways a perfect food. It's like an egg. An egg is a perfect food. Milk is a perfect food, and cheese and whey together. These are perfect foods in many ways. But if there is the allergenic response that people have, or the digestive response that, even if you're not allergic to cow milk, oftentimes, maybe if your listeners ever have taken whey protein supplements, they'll find that there's a lot of digestive side effects to, say, cow whey protein that are not pleasant. And a lot of those things just are not an issue at all when it comes to goat milk.
Yeah, so because God designed mothers to feed babies, and so even when we're first born, if we're breastfeeding, like the colostrum that just comes out, that's like very nutritious for us. And so yeah, like baby goats, they get their nutrition from mother goats, and same with baby cows. But as you said, with goat milk, it matches human chemistry much more, right? And so that's how we can get, you said it's nutrient dense. So even with cow milk, it could have nutrient density, but it has things that can make it difficult for us to digest and apply some of that. And by the way, does Capra, does that mean goat?
Yeah,
The word, okay.
Capra is the Latin word. It's actually also the Italian word for goat. So we're up here in the Pacific Northwest. You're in Colorado, so you've got mountains everywhere too. But the Pacific Northwest for a lot of people is like just this wonderland of like volcanoes and mountains everywhere. And so Mount Capra is just a play on our location, our roots here in the Pacific Northwest, where we've always been here. But there's no actual Mount Capra official peak in Washington, unless you count the hill that our farm is located on.
Oh yeah, I was thinking it was like a mountain in Greece, but I didn't see a Mount Capra in Greece there. But yeah.
How is your flame of truth, Christian? Is it burning bright? Hi, I'm Rebecca Berschwinger, creator and host of One Little Candle, a weekly podcast dedicated to encouraging, empowering, and equipping believers to be the light that God has called us to be, so that we may pass down undefiled the truth of God's infallible word to the next generation. So join me and light your own little corner of the world. You can listen to One Little Candle on all major podcast platforms or at christianpodcastcommunity.org.
And so, like, maybe can you just give me a brief summary of the types of goat milk-based products you offer at Mount Capra?
Oh, absolutely. And I should say, not every single, we've been doing this goat milk thing for a long time. Not every single product that goes out the door is coming directly from our farm. Everything we produce is going out the door to our customers, but we also have certain products that we don't make. Like, for example, we actually have a whole milk goat powder that we have supplied to people for years and years and years. But we actually, that does not come from our farm. That's one of our most popular products, but it actually comes from Dutch farmers over in the Netherlands. I've actually personally gone and visited the farms, and the Dutch are amazing when it comes to dairy production. And it's all of the Netherlands is, I believe, about a fifth the size of our state, Washington State. But they produce about twice as much goat milk as the entire United States put together. So yeah, we have goat milk powder. That's one thing that is a hugely popular one, and honestly, just a very easy to understand product, because if you know what milk is, you know what goat milk powder is. We also do a lot of different proteins. So milk contains two main proteins. There's casein protein. If you ever eat cheese, then you're eating casein protein, because the cheese is the casein protein is what makes cheese. And then whey protein is what is not turned into cheese. That's left over from the cheese making process. So we have some products that are just straight whey protein. And then we have other products that we call a whole protein, which contains both the casein and the whey protein. And that can be very useful because both casein and whey play very different roles in the body, but both are very, very important. Whey protein is famous for its ability to build up new muscle, or what we would call lean body tissue. That's muscle. Foods that build up lean body tissue are going to be proteins. But shoe leather is a protein, but if you eat it, you can't really digest almost any of it. So it's a very low quality protein. Of course, it's not even a food. But then you have other things like beans and rice and corn. Well, they have protein in them too, but the bioavailability of vegetable-based or legume-based proteins is very, very low as well. So even if you're getting a lot of protein from these sources, you're not really absorbing them. The standard for bioavailability is the egg, and that's 100 on a scale of 1 to 100. An egg is the highest that the scale goes. And casein is up in the high 90s. But whey protein, because it's not naturally found as it doesn't naturally come from the goat as whey. You have to actually process the milk to get whey. So you have to make cheese, you have to make yogurt, you have to make kefir in order to get whey. Whey actually comes in on the protein bioavailability scale at 104. So it actually is off the charts. It's so bioavailable that's its strength really is building muscle, building lean body tissue. Well, casein, on the other hand, it also contributes to lean body tissue. It's up in the upper 90s when it comes to bioavailability. But the thing that casein does that's so important is it actually protects your body from breaking down previously constructed lean body tissue or muscle. So as we get older, as we age, our body slowly catabolizes or breaks down, eats its own lean body tissue. That's just a process of aging. Well, casein actually can protect and inhibit the body from doing that to a greater extent than even whey protein can. So we have our whole protein product that is, it's basically a combination of both casein protein and whey protein. And those two things together work in conjunction to essentially allow the body to protect itself from breaking down previously constructed muscle and also building new muscle at the same time. So protein is just a huge one. You mentioned earlier, Daniel, colostrum and the amazing benefits that colostrum gives to baby after baby's born. Well, those benefits that colostrum has don't end just because you are now an adult. If many of your listeners, I'm sure, are familiar that there are actual colostrum supplements out there. People actually will take colostrum and it will help with a variety of things, from digestion to immune support to there's just the list goes on and on for what colostrum can be attributed to helping. There's just not a lot of goat milk colostrums out there. And in fact, we're pretty much the only one at this point. And colostrum's very, very popular, and it's kind of a hot product right now. But we've been doing it since 2005. So we've been offering our customers colostrum since 2005. And it's these kinds of products that a lot of people don't even know they would exist. Two more I'll tell you about. One is butter. So if there's cow butter, that means there's probably goat butter, right? Well, the way we do our butter is we actually do something that's called clarified butter. It also has another word called ghee, Ghee. Ghee is kind of this traditional Indian food, so you find it a lot more in Indian cooking. But goat milk ghee, which is basically just pure butter oil. So it actually can sit on the shelf. It's got no water in it. It's got no lactose in it. It's got no protein whatsoever. It's just pure butter oil. It is this amazing. It's amazing for cooking. It's amazing for butter tea or butter coffees for those who do the bulletproof diet. But goat milk ghee is another one of those products that no one else in the U.S. does. And we were the first ones to make it available 10 years ago. And so those are the kind of products that we offer. And then that first one, the one that we've been making since the 20s, that whey extract, that minerals and electrolytes that you find in goat milk, that's been historically one of our most popular products because our customers recognize the need for remineralization of our bodies. As industrial farming has kind of stripped the soil of many of the vitamins and nutrients, not so much vitamins, but the minerals that are oftentimes found in soil. The foods that we get at the store, they have less and less and less nutrition in them, less and less minerals in them and electrolytes in them. And our mineral whey, our electrolytes, our clean minerals products, those things are the kinds of products that actually remineralize your whole life, because they're giving, rather than just taking say a mineral that's been mined from a rock or from the ground, it's actually taking a bioorganic mineral, something that's already in its food-based form, which is far easier for the body to recognize and utilize. I know I went on quite the talk there on all the different products, but the point is that there are a lot of products that we offer, and they each are based in goat milk, and so those allergy, those digestive issues, you can get all of the goodness without those side effects.
That's awesome. And yeah, so goat milk, lots of derivative products, lots of applications, immunity support, maintaining lean muscle while aging. Yeah. So you talked about maintaining lean muscle and stuff. So that leads me to ask about, you have another company that you've called Mount Athos Performance. Can you tell me a little bit about that? Like is a workout and fitness supplements company?
Yeah, thank you for asking about that. So Mount Athos is an actual mountain. It's this actual mountain in Greece. Mount Athos is, excuse me. Actually, it's known as the Holy Mountain. So if any of your listeners are familiar with Eastern Orthodoxy, they would be familiar with what's called the Holy Mountain, and it's this actual. It's in some ways, it's in some ways similar to like the Vatican, in that it is its own Christian state. Mount Athos is, and so we based the brand off of Mount Athos because Mount Capra and Mount Athos, to a greater extent even, are explicitly Christian companies, and we wanted a way of connecting with the health and fitness world in a more direct way than the Mount Capra brand was able to do. And so Mount Athos is focused more on performance, whereas Mount Capra might be a great example of a company that is focused on just bringing you overall wellness. Mount Athos is really looking at giving you the peak performance, especially if you are training hard, you're pushing your body to its limits. That's where Mount Athos is going to come in.
So with Mount Athos's goat milk-based products, how do those for workout and performance compare to competitors in the space?
Yeah, one of the things for both Mount Athos and Mount Capra that's going to differentiate us from other competitors, and again, the most obvious one is the fact that it's goat milk. For a lot of people, that's like the differentiation, and it doesn't need to go beyond that. However, there are several other things that are noteworthy that differentiate us. One of them is that we are a vertically integrated company, meaning that most of your health and fitness brands out there are marketing companies. They're not. They are working with third-party manufacturers to source the ingredients, to build the ingredients, maybe even to fulfill the ingredients. And the big thing that they do as a brand is they just go out there and they look for market share, and they market their products, and they get with influencers, and they pay the influencers to tell people about the products. And all they do, the only interaction that they have with the products is in the development, which is no small thing. Developing a product takes a lot of work and expertise, but they're not making the products, they're not growing the products, oftentimes they're not even connecting in that final step with the customer. It might be an Amazon company where Amazon does all of that for them, whereas we are a company that actually, we're growing the products that we're sending to our customers. So when the customer receives a product from us, they're actually getting something that used to be here on our farm, that we drove to our processing facility. We processed in our own grade A process. We took it from our grade A dairy to our own WSDA inspected dairy processing facility. We then blended and bottled and packed and shipped and supported that customer all along the way. And so that's one of the areas that is incredibly rare in the health and fitness world, because most people do one of those things. They grow the raw material and then they sell it to a wholesaler, or they process the raw material and they are the third party manufacturer who puts the ingredients together, or they're the fulfillment company and they actually pick, pack, and ship all the products, or they're the brand owner who is connecting with all the influencers and getting the product out there and watching sales and all of that. We're doing all of those things, which is a very unique and an unusual thing for anyone in this space to do. And the third thing, so we got goat milk. That's the biggest differentiator. We have the fact that we're vertically integrated. So when customers are buying from us, not in every case, but in many cases, they're buying directly from products that we're producing here in the Pacific Northwest. And then the third thing is that we are relentlessly focused on purity, potency, sustainability, and we are explicitly pro-life. We're pro-natal, meaning that we want to see families have lots of children, and we want to see our government put in place very child-friendly policies and protect life and all of those things. And specifically with Mount Athos, we want to use our Christian morals and our Christian standing as a company to specifically enter in a space that has historically been degenerate, sexually degenerate, and a space that modern fitness culture worships the body. And it worships the body either through just pure, unvarnished, selling sex, or it does it through making people very, making people incredibly self-conscious and feel like they're never enough, and like they always need to get more gains. And so we have this idea that we want our customers to reject vice. We want them to embrace virtue, and to do so, that to make sure that as they pursue the health of their body, that they're not doing it at the expense of their soul.
And you definitely practice what you preach with the support for life and family, because you and your wife have 10 kids there. So yeah,
we're poster children for all the children, right?
Yes. And so with Mount Athos's goat milk based workout products, how do the results compare? Like, have customers who tried Mount Athos products and they tried something else before, do they communicate like a difference in how it affects their workouts, how it affects their moods, how it affects their performance?
Absolutely. In the world we're in, there's something called churn. Your listeners are probably familiar with it, but it's how often, when you get a new customer, how long they are a new customer for. And so for a lot of companies out there, the churn is very high because new customers come in, and most companies spend a ton of their money just acquiring new customers, because the customers they acquired didn't stick around that long. And that is going to happen in any space where there is a lot of competition for the same product. And there is just a lot of competition for a lot of fitness supplements that are really all the same. So a customer has to have a reason to stick with your company, beyond just the fact that, so it might be that you're the cheapest company out there, or it might be that you have the most famous people, talking about you. For us, the reason why customers stick with us is because we're willing to create products for them that aren't filled with artificial sweeteners and gum, artificial sweeteners and artificial colors, and they're not filled with ingredients that are low quality to begin with. So they are high quality ingredients to begin with, because quite frankly, our products are more expensive than most. Goat milk is just a more expensive product to produce because the economies of scale are much lower for us. But what keeps our churn rate so low is once a customer comes and finds us, not only do they recognize, well, no one else is really making this, they also recognize I'm getting much more bang for my buck from this product than I get from anywhere else. So going back to the the allergic responses. Allergic responses is not just, anaphylactic shock, what happens when you get stung by a bee. That's obviously a very intense, very life-threatening allergic response, but there's all sorts of allergic responses that you might not even recognize about, ranging from everything from like brain fog to migraines to eczema to all kinds of skin issues to just digestive distress all the time. You're spending all your time in the bathroom. And so the thing that when customers come to us and they start using these products, and this would be true for Mount Capra as well as the Mount Athos line, they are experiencing more, more for their money, more bang for their buck than they were before. They're getting a better workout experience if they're using our pre-workout. They're recovering faster if they're using our recovery product. They're sleeping better, or they're more focused on their day-to-day tasks if they are using our sleep support or our mind support products. These are just some of the things that you're going to see if you make that transition.
I noticed that you have a lot of Greek words, Greek names for things. Like you mentioned on the website for Mount Athos, there's this concept of arete, and you have your sleep support, which is like Elysium and stuff. Like, what inspired all the Greek? What is arete, and what inspired all the Greek names for products?
That's a great question. And yeah, so arete is this idea, this concept about the I'll just read it from our website. It's this concept of the relentless pursuit of one's highest potential in every aspect of life. That's what arete means. And we pulled this idea from Acts. Let's see. So let me just make sure, because I don't have this in front of me right now. I'm just going to pull this up. It's from Acts 24. And in Acts 24, I think it was Acts 24. Okay, I'm just having a little bit of a mind mind blank on our passage there in Acts. But essentially, it's as simple as this. Paul is talking to the Athenians, and he says, I see you guys worship all kinds of gods. So let me tell you, you worship so many, you're so religious, you even have a statue here for the unknown God. Well, I want to tell you guys about this unknown God. And so this idea in Mount Athos is that Christ is the king of all of the gods. It says in Psalm 90, it says in Psalm 82, God stands in the congregation of the gods. And, there are all these little g gods, which we know, of course, are not actual gods. Maybe they're demons, but they're not real gods. It's not like there's really a Mount Olympus with Zeus and the other gods all fighting with each other. But what we do know is that man is a worshiper by nature. And what we want is man to worship in mind, body, and soul Christ in all things. And so this idea of a lot of the Greek names just come down to the fact that Christ is king over all of them. And so Elysium rest is this mythical idea of heaven for the Greeks. Well, we know, of course, that God is king over heaven. He's king over earth. And because of that, we even, it's kind of like, not a lot of people know this, but the gods of this world, they are forgotten because because Jesus Christ is king, and the gods of this world are forgotten. So not a lot of people know that Thursday used to be known as Thor's Day. It was the day after you celebrated Thor. Well, he's forgotten because he's not a real god. But we still have the name around, and Christ is just king over all of those things. Every knee will bow, every tongue will confess that Jesus Christ is Lord.
So as begin to wrap up this episode, is there anything else that you'd like to say to conclude? And is there any, how can people learn more? How can they get a hold of you, Joe?
I would love if you guys, if your listeners would like to know more, you can go to mountcapra.com. That's mtcapra.com. Or if you want to see the Mount Athos brand, that's on athosperform.com. And both of those are going to have lots of information. You can go ahead and check out the different products. But if anything, just know, or if you know of someone who is struggling with the digestive world that we live in, or seems to be allergic to everything, or is looking to increase overall health or wellness or muscle tone or things like that, send them our way because we've got a lot of really great products that can really help.
Yeah, thank you, Joe. And I will include links to both sites in the show notes for this episode. And so I hope that this episode was enjoyable and informative to our listeners, and that perhaps maybe you haven't considered goat milk and the benefits it can give, but especially consider what Mount Capra and Mount Athos has to offer. And yes, check out both of those companies. You might find what you're looking for, and you get a hold of Joe. So thank you, Joe Stout, for being with us here on Truth Espresso.
Thank you so much for having me. This has been a great time.
Thank you for listening to this episode of Truth Espresso. Be sure to subscribe and rate it on your favorite podcast app. Truth Espresso is a member of the Christian podcast community. Check out other great faith-building shows at christianpodcastcommunity.org.